One of the hardest things about being a creative in the animation industry is learning how to deal with executives. These are the people who work for the studio who typically don't have artistic experience, but because they work for the studio, get a lot of creative input on the shows and movies that we all love. As a result, these executive decisions can be either really helpful or disastrous. From giving animators pointless notes, to canceling your favorite shows, to even ruthlessly laying off hundreds of artists. Animation executives need to be stopped. In this video, I'm going to share some of the best viral shorts that I made on this channel that tell the behind-the-scenes stories of animators dealing with executives. Keep watching because the stories start light and fun, but get darker and more evil. The last story is so sinister that it angers me to this day. Before we jump in, I launched an Animation Hustle Discord, links below. Let's get into it. This Disney animator snapped when he got feedback from his boss.
I say, is this what you want?
Usually, animation executives give terrible notes, but this time, I kind of agree. So let's go back. This is Andreas Deja, a legendary Disney animator. He's the guy who animated these characters. But one of the hardest characters for him to create was Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. When he first started drawing him, he gave him really cartoony features. But when the producer of the movie, Jeffrey Katzenberg, saw it, he wasn't satisfied. He wanted Gaston to be more handsome.
The soap opera star is the villain? How is that gonna work?
Over and over again, Katzenberg insisted that Gaston must be handsome. Deja tried to explain that if you make him handsome, he'd be really hard to draw.
And I said, but if he's handsome, that's gonna make it so much more difficult. And Jeffrey said, well, nobody said it was gonna be easy. And that was the end of the meeting.
So they ended up making a handsome Gaston. But why was being handsome so important? Well, it's simple and kind of genius. You see, the Beast looks scary, but has a heart of gold. And Gaston looks good, but is truly evil on the inside. All of this plays into the movie's theme of looks can be deceiving. This DreamWorks animator totally roasted the company. It's hilarious, but low-key, she kinda has a point. This is Kathy Alturi, a successful art director and production designer in animation. When DreamWorks first started, she was one of the first employees. But something happened in the early days of the company that always bothered her. Do you notice anything weird about this? It's the logo. Turns out, when she first saw it, she hated it.
When the studio was formed, they called me in because I'm a color expert, and they said, what do you think? And I said, that is, in my opinion, one of the ugliest logos ever designed. To me, just that logo says you're going to be making kids' films. I would recommend all blue or all white. I said, no, this is exactly what Steven Spielberg wants. So, my apologies for the logo. I had nothing to do with it. I tried.
Marvel executives gave Spider-Man animators the most unusual feedback. This is a hilarious story of how animators almost accidentally forgot Spider-Man's most iconic detail. Okay, so while making the Spider-Man video games, the animation team had to reinvent the Spider-Man design, and quickly learned that creating the perfect Spider-Man isn't easy. This is Jacinda Chu, an artist who designed tons of Spider-Man, but had a major problem. Marvel rejected every single option. Some were too skinny, some were too buff, but they were all missing one important detail. What the Marvel executives really meant was that he needed more, well, I'll let Jacinda explain.
In particular, they told me that his butt was not big enough.
On Twitter, the creative director explained that they needed to give Spider-Man the sculpted glutes of a gymnast, for story reasons. He even had a saying for how the butt should look.
It should be 2 scoops, as he likes to describe it.
Hakuna Matata? I don't know how you can make a song out of that.
Okay, we got to write a new song, and Roger came into the meeting, and they said, what's this song going to be about? And Roger and I said, we want to make the song about eating bugs. And they said, that's a terrible idea. We then had a big meeting, and Roger came in and said, there's this great expression that we picked up when we went to Africa. It's Hakuna Matata. And I remember Tim Rice said, Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that.
Hakuna Matata? I don't know how you can make a song out of that.
But then by the end of the meeting, he actually started to really like it. I remember, and he said, this could be like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So he wrote this song, Hakuna Matata, and then we got the demo back from Elton. So we got the cassette tape, and we listened to it, and there was this, endless verses getting into the song. It was really not a great intro. And so we were sort of trying to figure out what to do, and Roger and I sort of hit on the idea that maybe we would start with them reciting dialogue. Timon would say, Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata ain't no passing craze. It means no worries. We came up with that idea, and we pitched it to the guy who was the music supervisor, Chris Montan. And after we were done, he said, you can't start a song on the chorus. And I said, well, the Beatles did it. Can't buy me love. And he went, oh, okay.
This Cartoon Network executive gave the most pointless note, and the show creator responded in the most hilarious way. So back in the day, Billy and Mandy was one of my favorite cartoons. It was hilarious, but also had this dark vibe to it. Now, despite being the show with literal death as the main character, One executive had an unexpected problem with the character design. As she looked at this, the one thing that stood out to her was Billy's nose. For some reason, she didn't like how big it was. So the creator of the show, Maxwell Adams, had to draw Billy almost 20 different times with 20 different nose sizes. And then they got a bunch of kids together for a focus group, and the kids got to pick what nose they liked the best. And of course, all the kids chose the original nose size. Even still, the executive demanded they make Billy's nose 2 sizes smaller than what the kids chose. So the creator got a little petty. To spite the executive, Adams actually made the nose 1 size bigger than the original. Apparently, this Disney animator upset his director by doing something unheard of, making a cartoon that was too cartoony. This animator's sassy response to a director's note was hilarious and low-key legendary. So let's go back. Old school Disney animators were the best of the best. Walt was like Nick Fury and assembled a team of rock star animators. If you saw these dudes, you knew they were about to drop a banger. From Snow White to Pinocchio, Cinderella, and Jungle Book, these animators are a big part of why classic Disney movies are so good. So this guy is Ward Kimble. He was kind of the funny character specialist and was super creative. He was known for having tons of new crazy ideas, but one time he went too far. Do you remember this song from the Three Caballeros? So Kimble wanted to spice up the animation by having the characters break the laws of reality. They disappeared, teleported across screen, cartoon stuff. But the director didn't like it. He wanted the scene changed because it wasn't logical. Ward's response was great.
The director saw the pencil test as, you can't do that, you have to make sense. And I said, look, who cares? That gives it its flavor, its craziness.
The cartooniness added to the fun of the scene, so they kept it in and the song became iconic. But the story gets even crazier from there. Years later, Chris Sanders, the director of Lilo & Stitch, said that specific scene is what inspired him to want to be an animator.
Watching The Wonderful World of Disney, I'm pretty sure, and they showed the Three Caballeros. There was one sequence from that movie, and that was the sequence, the moment that I really decided I want to try to do this. And that's just a little bit that Ward Kimble did. And it's the song, the Three Caballeros song. And it was it was so fun. It was just, and it took advantage of animation, like all the strengths of animation, things come and go, and it's quick and it's ingenious, and I was absolutely thrilled. I still remember how I felt when that finished. My heart was beating fast.
Crazy. That's just one cool story to remind you to not be afraid to stand up for yourself and your artistic vision. Some people would have just accepted the director's note, but Ward Kimble believed in what he was doing. If he hadn't have boldly defended his work, we wouldn't have had his iconic scene, but maybe also wouldn't have had classic movies like Lilo & Stitch, How to Train Your Dragons, and The Croods. Hollywood executives tried to steal this guy's idea. This is the legendary story of how one tiny action saved an animator's career. So this guy is Brad Bird. He's the dude that directed this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Do you remember The Iron Giant? It was his first movie, and the story of how he got the gig is pretty crazy. Back in the day, Warner Brothers called him in to present his version of The Iron Giant, and Brad absolutely shocked all the executives. You see, The Iron Giant is based on a book, but Bird poured his soul into creating a new version of the characters and story. And when he revealed his idea, it was so different that everyone was stunned, but he continued his story anyway. Halfway through, Brad saw the assistants taking notes, and he knew he was slowly winning everyone over. Now, the entire room was excited, but this is where things get interesting. So the studio loved his idea and made a deal with him to make the movie. It wasn't until later that Bird discovered the studio had gone behind his back and paid 2 other writers to make scripts based on the notes the assistants took in the meeting. They even wanted to give one of those writers credit on the movie. It's crazy. If you look at the credits now, Brad's the only writer. So what happened?
One of them almost got screen credit, but I was smart enough to write it down and register it with the Writers Guild before I gave the pitch.
This is the text that was posted by Stories of the Animation Guild, or TAG, an Instagram account where they share industry stories from animation workers. This post caught my eye. Someone says they heard an executive at a major streamer say that they wanted to replace all storyboard artists with AI, which is absolutely crazy. So I wanted to see how that would even work. So I looked into AI storyboarding software and was pretty shocked to see they actually have a startup that's trying to replace storyboard artists. So I don't want to promote the software too much, but basically it's a software that lets you upload your PDF of your screenplay, and the software analyzes the script to create a shot list. Then the program generates the images for the storyboard. So animation and art in general will be nothing without human artists, and it's sad but not surprising to see this kind of stuff is going on, you know? Humans can't be replaced by computers. Animation artists and the unions that protect them need to fight this threat as much as they can. Of course, this isn't anything new. Studios always find ways to mistreat artists. One of the things you can do to raise awareness is to speak out against situations like this. You should definitely follow the Stories of Tag Instagram because they have more stories just like this. There are posts where animators reveal kind of the mistreatment they go through on the job, like this story about how an animator was overworked, or this post about how hostile the work environment was at a certain studio. Another great resource to find out what's really going on behind the scenes is the studio spreadsheet. I made a short about it, so let's just watch that.
Think twice before you work for these animation studios. There's finally a place where pro animators can spill the tea on what it's really like working for studios. This document lets animation industry pros review the studios they worked for. Big studios like Pixar, Disney, and Cartoon Network are there. There are also reviews of the smaller studios that produce shows like Archer, Loud House, and more. Since it's anonymous, anyone from an intern to a director can post things like if they would recommend a studio, the main problems with the studio, and their pay. An intern at Pixar makes $20 per hour plus housing. A background designer at Cartoon Network makes about $2,000 a week, and an animator at Disney makes $125,000 a year. On the spreadsheet, there's a little section for notes. That's where you can get the real inside scoop from bad CEOs to higher-ups that bully employees. It's a great resource for the animation community. A lot of studios have people reporting low pay and lots of work. There are also comments on what studios let you work remotely. Keep in mind, anyone can post anything on here, so it might not be accurate, but it will give you a feel of what to expect out there while on the job hunt.
The animation industry is crazy, so it's important for everyone to know exactly what they're getting themselves into before they even join it. So that's it for this video. If you want to see more about storyboarding, check out these videos.